Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Thomas Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Jim Kidwell, first-year member of the Board of Trustees. We welcome all people searching for meaning and purpose in life. We do not require allegiance to a creed, but have agreed upon 7 principles, the first of which is the inherent worth and dignity of all people. If you'd like to join us, contact our membership coordinator, Janet Taylor. Other important people include our interim minister, Reverend Kathy Hurt, Board of Trustees President, Deborah Novgordoff, our Justice Center coordinator, Reverend Don Cooley, and our DLRE, Barb Freeland. Our office administrator and our Zoom host today, Debbie Horvey, plus a host of volunteers that give generously and lavishly of their time. The office hours are from 9 to 4 on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. We're closed on Wednesday. Join us for morning coffee and conversation on Zoom Monday through Thursday from 9 to 9:30 and Fridays at 5 p.m. For more information and Zoom meeting connections, go to our website, tjuc.org. Thank you. Turn it over to Reverend Kathy Hurt for today's service.
I have a special announcement this morning from our Board of Trustees and our House Committee. At the special congregational meeting last Sunday, the congregation approved the reallocation of capital campaign funds to build a covered walkway at the front of our building. This project will go forward in the fall. Additionally, our House Committee proposes enclosing a portion of the walkway that would allow us to enter our church into a pleasing vestibule rather than entering into a crowded hallway. Constructing the vestibule at the same time as the construction of the new covered entrance would be more efficient, easier, and likely less expensive. We have an estimate of $29,200 for constructing the vestibule. Following longtime member Ann Dorsbeck's initial offer of a gift toward the vestibule, a number of individuals and families have pledged to contribute to this further project. At present, $22,100 has been pledged, leaving us just $7,100 short of the funds necessary to complete the project. If you'd be interested in contributing and making this part of your legacy here at the church, please contact Church Administrator Debbie Horvey, House Committee Chair Steve Sargent, or Board President Deborah Novgordoff. Thank you. And now we'll move into the beginning of our service.
We light a flaming chalice to honor our heritage as Unitarian Universalists and to symbolize the community we create together, even though in this season we must be apart. If you have a candle or chalice nearby, please light it as we read our chalice lighting words together. And as always, children and youth in your homes are warmly invited to act as chalice lighters today. We say together, may this flame, symbol of transformation since time began, fire our curiosity, strengthen our wills, and sustain our courage as we seek what is good within and around us.
Our opening words this morning are attributed to Kalidasa, a Hindu teacher. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, tomorrow only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day.
Escape room events have become quite popular. As a matter of fact, we've had 2 groups of teenagers that have done escape room events here. It's easy to understand why it's so much fun. It's puzzling, and it makes us think. So right now, I want to invite you to imagine that you are all stuck in an escape room. All you can see is people gathered around you, a screen of some sort, and a keyboard. The only way to escape is to work together to decipher two pieces of code that will magically appear in the chat window of your screen. After the first piece of code has been entered correctly, the second piece of code will appear. And I will pause for a bit to give lots of folks an opportunity to participate. So here we go. The first piece of code has been entered. This is a single word. As soon as you've got something, go ahead and type it in the chat. Aha. Aha. I knew it would be easy for you. All right, awesome. Yes, well done. The first code is in fact truth. And now for the second part. And this is another single word. Nobody has it yet. It should have read NEMNAGI. Think about our principles. That might help you. Aha. Ah. Anybody else want to get in there? All right, well, here we go. That was it. Meaning was the second clue. And so truth and meaning, ta-da, the locked door opens now before you. Within Unitarian Universalism, it's generally accepted that truth and meaning are not to be found within a single book, one area of knowledge, or a particular religion. Instead, Unitarian Universalism affirms that each person must search and discover for themselves where truth and meaning may be found. This important idea resides in the fourth of our set of principles. Reverend Paige Getty writes, as responsible religious seekers, we recognize that we are privileged to be free, to have resources to pursue life beyond mere survival, to continually search for truth and meaning, to exist beyond bonds of dogma and oppression, and to wrestle freely with truth and meaning as they evolve. This privilege calls us not to be isolated and self-centered, believing that our single perspective trumps all others, but rather to be humble, to be open to the great mysteries of truth and meaning that life offers us. And those mysteries may speak to us through our own intuition and experience, but also through tradition, community, conflict, nature, and relationships. Across our association, we have left open the questions of what truth and meaning are, acknowledging that mindful people will, in every age, discover new insights. In many ways, our responsible search for truth and meaning, both as individuals and in community, can help set us free. I wonder in what ways the practice of searching for truth and meaning has set you free.
While our church building may be closed for most activities and for Sunday services, church operations continue in other formats, which means the expenses of those operations continue. We count on your contributions to do the work of your church and hope that you'll continue sending those in either via the mail or you can contribute online through our website. Thank you for your generosity. For a long time, he looked at her in wonder. Then he bent over and gave her a kiss. She opened her eyes and smiled. Then she sat up, quite awake. He gave her his hand and she stood up. Together, they went down the narrow, winding stairs, along the corridors, down the main staircase, and into the great hall. At that moment, the king and queen awoke from their sleep. They were overjoyed to see their daughter awake and well, and they welcomed the prince who had broken the spell. Then the lords and ladies in the great hall awakened, and the whole palace began to stir. And the fire began to burn, and the meat began to cook. The maid began to pluck the chicken. In the courtyard, the dogs awakened and began to bark. In the stables, the horses stirred, and the pigeons on the roof awakened and flew away. Around the palace, the high hedge vanished. The palace had come to life again after its sleep of 100 years. Everyone in the palace was both astonished and delighted, and a wonderful wedding feast was prepared. It is, of course, the climax of the tale of Sleeping Beauty, when the long-awaited prince comes and with his kiss breaks the spell which has kept everyone asleep for so long. For 100 years, the entire palace, including animals and even insects, had been spellbound. Spellbound, the baby sucks her wall cast by the mid-morning sun. Children play around her. Her mother tries to catch her attention with a toy, but she is oblivious to everything except the shifting light. Spellbound, the boy watches a fast-breaking game of basketball. He would like to play himself, but he remembers the voices of parents and peers and teachers that have told him he's clumsy and slow. So he watches instead, unable to participate even when a replacement player is needed. Spellbound, the teenager dreams of prom. Visions of flowers and formal wear and romance dance through her head. But her parents have forbidden her to go because she is young and boys are unpredictable and proms are expensive and grades are the primary concern. She dreams on. Spellbound, he orders another drink. Too many drinks already, always too many drinks, but he craves the wonderful release drinking brings. Drink transforms his innocuous loneliness into a far distant memory and replaces them with relaxation and peace. Willingly, he surrenders to the spell. Spellbound, the nation endures a pandemic. Confusing and contradictory advice swirls all around as each person measures their ability to take risks, their obligation to others, their simple desire to enjoy once more what had previously been normalcy. That normalcy will return, so it is said and fervently believed, when a vaccine is discovered. But no vaccine has appeared on the horizon. The numbers claimed by the virus rise steadily. Businesses and churches and schools open and close, open and close. Spellbound. The nation keeps stumbling through chaos, heading into uncertainty. Spellbound, the nation endures a pandemic. Confusing and contradictory advice swirls all around as each person measures their ability to take risks, their obligation to others, their simple desire to enjoy once more what had previously been normalcy. That normalcy will return, so it is said and fervently believed, when a vaccine is discovered. But no vaccine has appeared on the horizon. The numbers claimed by the virus rise steadily. Businesses and churches and schools open and close, open and close. Spellbound. The nation stumbles through chaos, heading into uncertainty. Spellbound. That strange, troubling condition wherein the usual and desirable forward movements of life are arrested, held captive by a powerful force. Spells were once the common stuff of fairy tales and myths. Heroines in forever seemed to be falling under a spell, with their life's progress halted for an indeterminate time. But spells are also the common stuff of everyday flesh and blood contemporary existence. All about us, perhaps even including us, walk people whose lives are halted, derailed, caught in one phase long past the time they should have moved on. Once spellbound, we can no longer direct our destiny freely. Instead, we answer to the force which holds us captive. We do its bidding until we're set free or we die. Can you go about as you please, doing whatever appeals to you? Or do you bump against restrictions every time you turn around? Has your life moved through the usual stages of development? Or are you stuck somewhere along the way, unable to finish one life task and move on, broaden out to the next one? Are you caught in old griefs, old losses, old failures, unable to forgive yourself, to heal? Do you direct your destiny, make decisions? Or do you feel helpless, victimized? Excuse yourself with such disclaimers as, well, I can't, I'm not free to, I have no choice, I'm too busy, it's not possible. As you figure out how to live in a pandemic, what measures are you using to assess risk? Or do you keep deciding that you'll do nothing until all risks are removed and conditions of complete safety, which never exist anywhere, anytime, have come to be? Are you free, or are you under a spell cast by some wicked witch or angry magician, some domineering parent or spouse or boss, some image of who you used to be or who you think you should be, some unknown and fearsome force, some mysterious virus? You may recall that the story of Sleeping Beauty began happily as a king and queen welcomed into the world what they had most wanted, a baby daughter. To celebrate, they prepared a lavish christening feast and invited everyone in the kingdom to attend. Special guests at the feast included the good fairies, who would be godmothers to the child. There were 13 fairies, but one was old and had not been seen for many years. Because the king had only 12 golden plates, he invited just 12 of the fairies to come to the feast. the old fairy not included. The feast proceeded. All were celebrating. The good fairies took turns promising gifts to the baby girl. And then with a loud noise, the 13th fairy, the one not invited, appeared. She pronounced a curse upon the infant that condemned her to stick her finger with a needle when she was 15 years old and fall dead. All were horrified. The royal parents did what they could to eliminate the curse, but they only succeeded in softening it a bit. The child would sleep for 100 years, but not die. And so on the princess's 15th birthday, despite her parents taking every precaution, the curse struck as the old fairy had prophesied. The princess stuck her finger and fell into a deep sleep, and everyone in the palace slept with her. All life ceased, held in suspension for 100 years under the spell. For those of us who don't live in palaces in mythical faraway lands, the threat of spells from angry fairies seems, well, remote. Yet the truth is, any one of us can fall prey to spells from someone we don't invite to our celebration. If a life that is spellbound is a life that is arrested, derailed, thwarted in its forward movement toward maturity and wisdom, what could be the cause of such a condition? Sometimes we have a spell cast on us by a parent transformed into a threatening monster by life stress or psychological binds, so that our life's natural movement towards greater independence is limited. You can't do that. You're too little. You're too young. You're too dumb. I know better than you. I'm older. I don't love you when you do that. You're on your own now. Don't come to me for help. If you want that, you're no son, no daughter of mine. You like him? You want to marry her? You must be kidding. These are just a few of the better known parental spells. Used at the proper moment, these spells cast a pall over a child, whatever the age, infant or adult, and halt growth to maturity. Other relatives, friends, partners, bosses can cast the same spells with the same life-altering consequences. And then there are spiritual spells that come over any one of us, even people like many of us who tend to regard ourselves as having grown beyond any vulnerability to spiritual pronouncements that limit us in some way. Most often, a spiritual spell takes the form of fear becoming dominant in a life. Fear of risk, fear of change, fear that is the opposite of faith, fear that is the opposite of love, fear that has the power to keep us from moving forward in hope or joy. Spiritual traditions of all kinds warn us about our propensity for choosing death, not literal death, but emotional and spiritual death, choosing death over life because we're afraid. We limit ourselves unnecessarily. We settle for life not at its fullest. We prefer not to grow. For a long time now, churches of all kinds everywhere, settings in which one would expect to find abundant life, unceasing growth. Churches are considering the choice of death over life as they struggle to find new ways of governing and worshiping and doing outreach and living in covenant that will somehow end the steady decline in size and resources that is a sure sign of having chosen death over life again and again. Today, we struggle to adapt to the circumstances of a pandemic. We argue about who gets to tell us what we can or cannot do. We disagree about what constitutes acceptable risk. We seem inclined to adopt a holding pattern often, instead of using creativity and imagination and a willingness to risk in order to develop a new normal rather than just waiting for the old normal to come back. Today, all around us and among us, wherever injustice is complacently accepted, wherever one group wields power over another for its own advantage, wherever power over love is the operative force, wherever we settle for life that is not full and free for our chosen death, have fallen under death's spell again. And the solution? The story of Sleeping Beauty makes it clear that you need a prince to come along at the ideal moment, and that's the best antidote to a spell. I've known my share of princes and princesses, and I suspect you have as well. People who are marvelously adept at breaking spells. Unfortunately, they come along rarely and cannot be consistently depended on to appear just when we need them. God is another recommended spell breaker, though God is somewhat unpredictable and often hard to find when in the throes of a spiritual spell. I hear many talk about the lifting of the pandemic spell coming when a vaccine is made available. But like any magic potion, it will not necessarily lift all that has come with the pandemic. It will not necessarily lift the new degree of fear with which we regard one another and so many aspects now of our life. A vaccine cannot cure fear that has us in a spell to keep us hunkered down and isolated, nor will it turn us to the way of life we previously enjoyed before we had any idea what a pandemic might be. My own experience with spells has shown me that the most reliable antidote to a spell is likely to be found within. Spells cast by external circumstances, by powerful figures of authority, by learned limitations, can send me into extended detours from time to time, detours that grow ever longer when I spend them waiting for someone to come along and rescue me, to lift the spell. But as I'm able to shift my attention from looking outside myself to looking inside, to honestly assess my strengths and my shortcomings, and to work with just that, not something someone else is going to bring me, not some magical new power, but the good enough package that is me and my own particular, unique life, then I see a transformation happen. Playing the hand that dealt me, accompanied by a willingness to ask others for help, does not immediately lift a spell, but over time lessens its intensity, pushes back death, and allows more and more of life to enter in. Last Sunday, this congregation voted to change the name of this church. As I listened to individuals express opinions for and against the change, I heard so many different perspectives on the church's identity, who you understand yourself to be now as a church, who you understand yourself to have been in the past as a church, who you aspire to be in the future. All such discussion points to a desire to lift the spell that has been present, a spell that every church falls into, especially during a time of transition. The spell which, much like the spell Sleeping Beauty fell into, is a spell which keeps everything exactly the same. Much of the comfort any church provides its members is in its sameness, especially given how constant change is in all areas of our lives. And the desire for the comfort of familiarity and constancy is particularly strong right now, as we are awash in the uncertainty created by the pandemic. Yet you voted not to remain the same. Not because who you've been was bad or wrong, but because it no longer describes who you desire to be as a church. The spell of remaining the same started lifting last Sunday. And though it won't be gone magically like Sleeping Beauty's spell that vanished with one kiss, still, if you want that spell to lift further, you can make that happen with each step you take towards your future. A future in which, as you said again and again in the meeting last Sunday, is a future that has this church becoming ever more welcoming, ever more inclusive, ever more committed to transforming the world. Now new energies are stirring around you. Where will you go next? A short time ago, this congregation hired a new choir director, Katie Calcamugio, but again, under the strange circumstances of the pandemic, you've not had a chance to experience her work, much less experience her in our choir. However, rather than continuing to wait for something to come back, Katie will be joining us this morning from her home, singing a cappella for us, Forever Young. We'll now switch to Katie.
Good morning. I am absolutely thrilled to meet everybody, whether it is virtually or in person. I'd like to start this morning by telling you a little bit about me and a little bit about the journey of this song and about our journey. About a decade ago, I was asked to perform with the Grammy Award-winning group Eighth Blackbird. They had asked John Corigliano, who had written a song set called Mr. Tambourine Man, they had commissioned him to write for their small ensemble. The piece I learned was based on 7 poems of Bob Dylan, including Mr. Tambourine Man, Masters of War, Blowin' in the Wind, and his song Forever Young. I was thrilled to perform these, as I grew up with these songs in my house, whether it was my mom strumming them on her guitar or a record of Bob Dylan or Peter, Paul, and Mary singing it as I listened to the record in our basement. When I received the score, though, it was jarring to my ear, and frankly, I didn't like the songs of how they were set. It was the same poetry, but the songs were set entirely differently. These were not the songs that I had heard growing up. I wanted to stop the work on this project. It was too jarring for my ear and it was too hard for my heart. I couldn't get used to this new sound world. However, the opportunity to work with the group, and quite honestly, the paycheck was what kept me involved with the piece. And I decided to move forward. I delved, I spent numerous hours figuring out intervals. I may have swore a little bit as I was learning these pieces, but I fell in love with each of these pieces for the poetry and for the new music that was of them. Thank goodness I stuck with it, because it is the piece that has become one of my signature pieces that I do. It is, I performed it with orchestras and small ensembles and piano, and it's a piece that I fell in love with. And when I asked John how he decided to set Bob Dylan poetry, he had said that he had, as a music student, he had never heard these war songs. And I laughed and I teased and I said, John, I've heard these and I didn't even grow up during this time. How did you miss it during the time that was so important in your life, as he is now just had his 80th birthday? And he said, I was involved in school, but I came across this book of poetry in a library when I was asked to write a song set based on English poetry, and I fell in love with the words. Similarly, I'm going to ask that as your new music director, that you enter with me this musical journey that we have. I hope you get to know me. I hope you spend time with me. I hope you tell me your likes and your dislikes. I hope that not necessarily you swear at me, but if that's needed, I understand too. But regardless, I hope that we delve together to find a deeper meaning in our musical journey together. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what your traditions are that you like. I want to ask that you remain open as I start new traditions, hopefully. I want to hear your voice both in the congregation, and I'll be recruiting you to sing with us. And I can't wait to meet all of you. You'll see us doing some new adventures with online singing, and hopefully by the time we figure it all out, will be the time that we get to gather in person again. So for you today, I have for you the poem of Bob Dylan, but set by John Corigliano, the music set by John Corigliano. It is a cappella today. Thank you so much. May God bless and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others, and let others do for you. May you build a ladder to the stars, and climb on every road. May you stay forever young, forever young, forever young. May you stay forever young. May you grow up to be righteous. May you grow up to be true. May you always know the truth and see the light surrounding you. May you always be courageous, stand upright, and be strong. May you stay forever young, forever young, forever young. May you stay forever young. May your hands always be busy. May your feet always be swift. May you forever young, forever young. May you stay forever young, may you stay forever young. Thank you, and I look forward to meeting all of you.
We extinguish our chalice flame, but never the fire of commitment and community.
The closing words are traditional closing from our sister congregation in Walnut Creek, California. In the name of the Father and of the Son, in the name of the Mother and of the Daughter, in the name of the community we all make up, and in the name of the love that is in us all, and in all things, and beyond all things. Shalom,
Salam.
namaste,
Blessed be.
amen, together.